everybody, it's Sarah with the Hobby Lobby Creative Studio. Stay tuned to learn some great needle felting tips, and I'll walk you through a really cute craft as well. So stay tuned, we'll be right back after this. Needle felting has quickly become one of my favorite crafts to work on. Today I'm going to show you how to make these adorable little birds here. They're made from 100% wool roving, and you can see the colors are just gorgeous. They have bright pink, they have pastel colors you can use. Pretty much any color you can imagine that comes in a wool roving you can needle felt with. I'm going to show you how to make the green bird here in front in particular today because she's so cute. And we're going to show you how to make the wings, the tail, the beak, everything that you'll need to know to make this bird. So to get started, you'll need the Artis brand 100% wool roving in the colors of celadon, bright orange, turquoise, black, and cream. And then you'll need some kind of filler for the middle of your bird. We've chosen to use these styrofoam eggs. You'll need a multi-needle felting tool, felting needle refills, a felting brush mat, and maybe a couple of wool felt hearts and flowers. So to get started on our bird, we're going to take our wool roving in the colors that we've chosen, but you can choose any colors that you want to make your own bird at home with. So we're going to take our celadon color first, and with this roving, you never want to cut it. You always want to tear it so that it doesn't have any blunt edges. So with my roving, I'm going to set that aside and then take my egg that I'm going to use for the filler for my bird. And we've chosen to just grab a packet of eggs that you can find in styrofoam at Hobby Lobby, and I've just cut it in half with a pair of scissors. So this is going to kind of serve as the body of my bird, kind of his chest area. And then I'm going to place my wool roving all around it and just kind of build up on top of it. Also, needle felting is really cool. I like it a lot because it's really a form of sculpture. You really use a needle to sculpt the roving and turn it into all these really cool shapes. So that's really what I like about it. And it's really kind of therapeutic at the same time. So I'm going to tear off some of my roving. And you really don't need a big amount to start with. You just kind of want to get your project started. So tear off a piece, maybe about yay big, and then kind of place it wherever you like. I'm going to place it on the flat part of my egg. Now place it on your surface. You can see I've got this felting brush mat here. What that does is it gives me a surface so that my needle can actually pass into my roving and it has something to catch it. You would never want to do this on a flat surface because whenever you're poking your project with a needle, it's just going to hit that surface and break and ruin the surface that you're working on basically. So these are specially made for needle felting. So you want to pick one of these up in order to make your bird on. And I'm working with a special needle. This is not just a regular sewing needle. You can tell it's a lot longer and it has a long sharp tip with some barbs on it. What the barbs do is they actually grab onto the roving as the needle is going into it, and it grabs it as it's going back out too. So what it's really doing is essentially just matting the roving, and it's causing it to build up and build up on itself so that it creates more of a solid shape to it, and that's where your sculpting comes into play here. So this is an example of a refill for a felting needle. You can also use a single needle just for some really fine detailed work, but a much safer option is to go with this multi-needle tool. And you can see it has a much more comfortable grip to it, and it's also got this protective casing on it. So it has an unlock indication, and then you can also lock it as well so that whenever you're not looking, if the kiddo picks it up, they can't poke themselves with it. So you always want to put it in that locked position so that you know you and everyone else around you is safe. So this tool is really cool too because it has multiple needles within it. That way you can do a larger area at once instead of just with the single needle. So with this tool, again, we have our roving that we've torn off and just kind of placed on our filler here. What you're going to do is just start kind of pressing it into your roving. You can probably tell already, it kind of makes a sound that you're either going to love it or you hate it, but I kind of have actually grown to love it. It's kind of therapeutic. So start off slow if you're a beginner. You can just go in and out, just go slowly over your surface, and your fingers will be nice and guarded with this guard that's on here. And you can see that it's literally pushing down the roving into the styrofoam, and it's getting caught within the styrofoam. So now it's nice and secure on there. It's not going to fall off. So we're sculpting the roving around our styrofoam. And it doesn't take much. You're not going to have to do this for very long to get it to stick. And another good tip is that you never want to pick this up and do it in the air and try to do it that way. With this tool, I mean, you'd probably be okay doing that, but you just want to get into the habit of never doing that, because if you ever start to use your single needle tool, you're going to go straight through and it's going to hurt, I promise. So I've learned that the hard way. You always want to leave whatever you're working on your mat. So promise me you'll do that at home, okay? Okay, so I've got kind of my first layer on, and you just keep tearing roving off and using it as you need it. So we're going to keep covering kind of the top flatter surface. And you can kind of, I'm going to start building up his back a little bit. So I've torn off a little bit more roving, and I'm just going to kind of bunch it up here and start pressing it in on the edges. Now, if you want to give body to something too, like I want him to have a little more body right here because that's kind of the curve of his back, I'm going to try not to press so much on that area. I'm just going to try to press in my edges. That way, this is secure, but it leaves a lot of fluff here and it gives it lots of volume in that spot. He's looking good here. So I've got about all that I want to put on his back, I think. And we can always come back to it and touch it up later too. But now I'm going to move on to the chest area, which is kind of this curved side of the egg. And for that I'm going to use some of this cream colored roving. And that'll be a really pretty contrast to our celadon color. So I'm going to kind of shape it. I'm going to kind of look at my area and then kind of pre-shape it before I start putting it on with my needle. That helps you cover the surface a little bit easier too. So I've got it laid out here to fit the area. I'm just going to start attaching it again. So I think I'm okay with how his chest looks, and we can always come and really fine-tune it later. So now I want to work on his tail. So for his tail, I'm going to tear off some more of my celadon color. And here we have a really good example of whenever you have maybe like a body part that you're trying to add on to an animal or something really fine and detailed that you need to add, you can always make it separately from your object and then attach it to it. So what I'm trying to do is kind of fold over my edges, and that's going to help tuck in some of these flyaways on my roving. So I'm just kind of shaping it into what I want the tail to look like, kind of folding over the roving as I go, and then I'm going to place it on my mat and then start to poke the roving and mat it up so that it stays in that shape. And again, I'm just kind of doing the edges because I want to leave some body in the tail. Now, if you haven't guessed it already, on the flip side of that, the more you poke in one area, the more recessed that roving becomes. So if you need to do areas where you need divots or some kind of detail work like that, where you really want it to vary in heights, the more you poke on that area, the more matted it's going to become and the more recessed it becomes. So now we're going to attach it to our bird. And I'm just going to kind of fold over my end and place it on the tail end of my bird. And then still with the bird on the mat, don't hold it up in the air. Start attaching the tail with your needles. It won't take long till it starts to attach. See, it's already attached. Now we just want to get it a little more secure, so I'm going to come on the bottom side here, tuck his tail in a little bit more. Okay. Now, here's an example of probably where I want to pull out my single needle tool and just do a little bit of detail work as I go. You can see my tail is a little bit wider than I would like, and it's got some wispies hanging out here. So with it still on my mat, I'm going to take my single needle and, not doing it towards myself, but away from myself, I'm going to insert the needle on the edge here and just kind of try to tuck in some of these edges, just to create a little more of a crisp line here. One thing with this needle too is the end of it is really breakable, so you actually want to make sure you're going in and straight out, never sideways, because you'll probably break it if you try to move it around a lot while you're working with it. So always keep that in mind, and it'll become second nature to you too eventually. It might feel a little bit funny at first, but you'll pick up on it really quickly. This is really one of the easiest crafts to do. I love it. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the tail, and I want to move on to, let's do the head now. So for the head, again, I'm going to set my bird aside and just tear off a separate piece of roving. And I'm going to kind of ball it up in my hands first, maybe kind of check the sizing. I think that might be a good size head for our bird. So I'm going to ball it up a little bit here before I start to mat it. So keeping my fingers clear again. Just a good habit to get into as much as possible. I'm going to start to create this circle shape. You might have to pick it back up and ball it up a little bit more in your hands. The reason I'm doing that is because I want to make it a nice smooth looking circle, and if I just do the whole thing by poking it with the needles, it's going to have a lot of bumps and divots all over it. So I just want it to be as smooth looking as possible. Okay, so it's getting there. Okay, so about this point I'm ready to attach it to the rest of my bird. Whoops. Okay, so I'm going to set it about right there on the bird. And for this, because this is already kind of matted, so this is a little bit difficult to get into these little small areas, I'm going to go back to my single needle and away from my fingers, I'm going to poke it pretty far down in there until I feel it. I can hear it in the styrofoam, and I can tell that it's matting pretty deeply in there. And another technique is that you can stick your single needle in, and without even pulling it all the way out, you can kind of go back and forth like this, because it's still going to mat it with that barbed edge. It's going to still grab your wool roving, even though you're not coming all the way out and going back in. So that's a great way to protect your finger also, by not even having to come out of your roving. Okay, so let's go in the underside here. Okay, so my head looks a little bit funny right now, I'll have to admit. I just need to add a little more roving. This is why I love needle felting. It's very forgiving. I can just add more if I need to. gonna shape it up just a little bit before I attach it, but not much. Okay. And since I'm just trying to add a little bit in a small area, I'm using my single needle. So the head's getting about to the size that I need it to be. Okay, so now is really cool because now we can start doing a little more of the small details that make up our bird. So we're going to do the beak of the bird now. And I think for the beak on this one, we created a little bit of a recessed area that the beak can actually fit into. So you can see his face kind of dips back a little bit. So for that, we're going to, again, concentrate on that area that you want to be recessed with your needle. You can see it pushes the roving down more in that area. So see, we've got kind of a divot there now that we're going to place our beak into. Okay, so I'm going to set him aside for now and tear off just a little bit of my orange roving. And be extra careful when you're doing these super small parts with your fingers, okay? Okay, so on your brush mat here, I'm going to start forming my beak. And again, I want my beak to have a little bit of volume to it, so I'm just going to concentrate on the edges first of my roving. And at this point, this piece that I'm working on is so small, so I'm just keeping this hand completely clear of it right now. Okay, so I think my beak is looking good enough to put on my bird, and then I'll kind of pretty it up after I put it on there. Okay, so I'm going to attach it to that little recessed area that we made earlier. Put it down on my mat again, and then press my needle into the beak area. And without even coming out, I'm just going to kind of mat it deep within the roving here. So it's attaching to our celadon part. I just love that I can create these shapes without having to use any glue or tape, nothing. All I need is this roving and a needle. Okay, now I want to create some little eyes for the bird now. So again, just tearing off a really small piece of black. Actually, I guess we'll need two little small pieces. I'm going to roll it up in my fingers first to create as much of a ball as I can. This piece is so small that I'm just going to take it straight to the bird. I've actually got a little bit too much. It's okay, just tear off what you don't need. Okay, we're going to kind of set one of our eyes on there. Carefully insert your needle without even coming out. And then I'm kind of working around the eye too, also with the needle, to make a little recessed area, to make it look a little more natural too, for where his eyes would really be. All right, so what else does our bird have? He has some colored wings. So we're going to use a turquoise color for his wings. You could really leave your bird like it is, or you could add the wings for a really cool contrast. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do. So again, I'm going to kind of make the shape of the wing first, separately from the bird, kind of tucking under my ends, and then taking my multi-needle tool again. I'm going to mat up the edges here. Punch the top a little bit so that that volume is not quite as big. I'm going to attach it to the side of my bird here. Oh, he's going to look so cute. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that wing. I think he's good to go on that side. Okay, he looks like he's halfway in flight, so we just need one more wing to finish him out with. I think he's looking really good, don't you? I love how it turned out. So, I think we're good with the bird, and his body and his wings and his beak and his eyes. I think we're good to go on that. The last little thing that I like to do is we've added a really cute little heart on his chest and then some flowers on the head as well. So Artiste makes these really cool pre-cut out felted shapes, and we have some flowers that are stackable, so you can make layered flowers on top of each other, and then they have these really cute heart shapes as well. So that way you can just take them right out of the package, attach them, and your object is good to go after that. So again, these are made out of felt. They're 100% wool. So attaching them is just like what we've been doing this whole time. So place it wherever you want to place that heart, and with your single needle, carefully, just insert it all the way down in there, and without even coming out, just go up and down with your needle at a few different spots on the heart so that it starts to attach to that wool underneath. Ugh, I mean, how cute is that? So cute. Okay, we're going to put this little flower on his head. I guess now it's kind of turning it into more of a her. We're going to put it on her head. The flowers seal the deal for that one. She's gorgeous. Okay. How cute is this bird that you just made? And you can make your bird in any color you want, and any style you want, any size wing, no wings, whatever you want to do. That's the beauty of needle felting. You can make all sorts of cute little things with needle felting, from animals to food even. It's great, fun, therapeutic. You know, you can sculpt anything, make any sort of cute little project that you want to. We'll see what you come up with, and I'll see you next time, guys.